Hello, welcome to the Pragmatic Guide to Compliance and Platforms. In my experience, whenever compliance comes up, the room empties of developers. I'm very happy to see that it's not really the case in this room today. But in my experience, developers would rather run, hide, work around, or postpone the questions about compliance until the very last minute or for as long as possible. I believe that most software organizations would benefit from doing a more pragmatic approach to compliance. That's why we're here. So I will share my thoughts on how to approach compliance from an internal developer platform perspective, so that even though it might feel cumbersome and confusing, because honestly, who read compliance regulatory documents? It's so fucking confusing. And I think you will be able to set up your systems and your teams and your organization for success. Compliance is often tucked in at the end, leading to a misfit between systems and expectations, and in the long run, often leading to delaying projects or maybe like making sure that they don't reach production in the end. So when we design, that's not the one, sorry. When we design for compliance, we make sure that we take it into consideration early on and ensure that we can keep our platform compliant and thus offloading the developers, reducing cognitive load. And you all probably heard about trust but verify. In my experience, the companies that exist in regulatory business and industries, they often do control every move and verify twice, meaning that it's a pain to be in those type of organizations. So we want to move closer to trust but verify in order to allow us to move faster as a software organization. But that requires that we should be able to still be able to follow up on audit trails and everything, because at points you might end up having an audit review and then you need to show proof. So we need to be able to trust that our developers are doing the right thing and doing the things in the right way, but we also need to be able to verify that this actually happens, because we need to prove it to someone else at some point. And rarely do we get the chance of building platforms in a vacuum. We often build internal developer platforms in organizations where it has already existed. Me and others are saying that even if you're not intentionally building a platform, you're actually having an implicit platform already. Wall talks about that, so let's not dig deeper, but you can't start from scratch, so you need to take into consideration what is already there when you're starting to build your platform or adapting it for compliance. My name is Jessica. I'm a cloud architect that tries. I'm also a CNCF ambassador and a community organizer in Gothenburg. We're always looking for speakers, so if you have a topic you want to share and you want to travel to Gothenburg, please find me. And I've been working with internal developer platforms and enablement for the last 8 years, both hands-on and as a leader, so I have a lot of thoughts on the topic. Last time I was on this specific stage, I had 5 minutes to share something that was cohesive and comprehensible. I'm very happy to have a little bit more time today, because compliance takes a little bit longer to talk about. But let's start about defining our terms when we're talking about internal developer platform, because even though a lot of people already mentioned it during this conference, I think there might still be some confusion. So it's not internal developer portals, they are just the interface to your platform. That's a different thing. Backstage in itself is not a platform, you're saying. It's not identity providers either, which might be something that you start thinking about when you hear about compliance and everything, because it's relevant, but it's internal developer platforms. And as we heard in the State of DevOps report, there's about 89% in the industry that is using some sort of internal developer platform. And as we know, it's like 89% of the respondents might not correspond to 89% of the organizations, but it still points in some direction. While it's a little bit of a vague term, what do we even mean by internal developer platform? Because if I talk to 10 different people, it might mean 10 different things in each of these situations. The idea is to combine a set of tools that remove some of the hardest part or the most hairiest pieces and configuration for your team members and make that easy and into a standardized way of doing it. So the red thread is that we want to glue together everything and sorry, I need to adjust my notes. And we want to make sure that the developers have a clean path to simplify the CI/CD setup, etc., and get all things running in order to encourage best practices. We might want to have like a standardized way of doing things. We want to make sure that it's easy to move software between teams, get things into production, maintain things in production, and keep it going over the life cycle. We also want to reduce the cognitive load on developers, because the more time they have to spend about how do I get things up and running, they can spend less time about how to build the compelling product that will help us succeed. I forgot to say when I started this that this is actually a presentation that I'm co-writing with my co-worker Jonathan, who is obviously not here. So if I stumble on something, it's probably because I'm not Jonathan and he has a really nice flow of saying things. The motivation why we care about compliance in platform is that if you are in a regulatory business and you are not adhering to the things that apply to you, you as a business risk a high fee, or like if you fail to be compliant to an audit. There was an incident with Swedbank had an incident and they had diverged from their documented path of doing things. And when they got audited, that meant that they were up for a potential fine of 800 million SEK. That was negotiable, maybe. I know it was not done, but that was like the first, like in your face, this is what's gonna happen. So companies care about being compliant because it could be a really large hit to them if they don't. So this is why your C-level people really care about it. And if we look at it from a developer point of view, you probably experience it yourself, but it can add a lot of cumbersome steps for you. So it's not just get that application up and running, because do you have the right account? Do you have a service account for that? How about where do you do your access logging? Where do you do all the things? And all these things you might need to figure out yourself if it's not already in place. So this is an opportunity for an internal developer platform team to actually deliver a lot of value for the organization by implementing lessons learned from how we do other things with golden paths, etc., and we can apply it also to the compliance part. So when we look at a lot of the organizations that have been around for a long while, they probably already have something in place for this. And here's where Jonathan put in a lot of the words that I don't know what they stand for, because I'm really bad at abbreviations. But it's just like, you can see like an NPM, an EAM, or a CMDB. And I think all of these are like different systems that are set up to track like software, what assets, what servers, what systems, what users, and all the things. Just put a name that you remember and recognize for that and put it into that box, and we probably mean the same thing. But the idea is that they are large and clunky, and you know it's probably some manual filing of all the things, and it's hard to follow up on this register, and whenever you create something new, it needs to go back into that system. So a lot of people had a great idea that let's replace this with a new thing. How did you think that went? Like, how many things do we know how have to maintain? Because most of the time, it's very hard to replace those. You can replace it with a majority of things, which in general, we say 80-20 internal developer platforms a lot, which usually means that we say that we should cater for 80% of the use case, and then 20% have to find their own way with their edge cases. That does not work when you work with compliance, because you can't just say like, oh, we don't have access logs for 20% of our applications because they were edge cases. No one is going to buy that. So you are going to need to match the whole use case. And it will be hard to replace those old systems because they're huge. There's a lot of things. And there are things tracked in those that are not only software. So if you find a solution that works well for your software, it might not work well for the other things that are tracked in that. So as we move from our service being pets to cattle to insects, data quality gets harder and harder to maintain. And the drift between what is documented as reality and what is actually reality becomes like more separate, and it's a larger drift between it. So despite the best effort, all replacement efforts fail for trying to move these APM, EAM, CMDB, whatever those are. It's very hard to replace them. So if you look at the classic infinity sign for software lifecycle, development lifecycle, from the context of compliance, you as a developer might be like running around, you try to do the ever improvement, iterating process, and then suddenly you're just going to get that service account and you get stuck in a black hole. Or you finally get to the point where you want to deploy something to production, but oops, you have to create a change record of that deployment before you can push it to production, and suddenly you're stuck in the maze and you can't find your way out. Or you actually got something to production, and you just want to see what went wrong, so now you are going down to get stuck in the snake pit for log access. So all in all, we think there's a lot of hurdles that will take a lot of time and get you derailed from the things where you actually want to spend your time. But this talk is not about all the things that are wrong in the world, because let's face it, we could be here for a very long time. We want to talk about what you should do about it. So first of all, we think that you should integrate with existing ways of working. And we know that the compliance box is like uneven edged, and it's a hurdle to integrate with it. But we think that the platform, internal developer platform, can be the interface that might also be a little bit uneven, but may leaves the users with a much more even interface that they can work with. We also think that it's important to work with trust. And as I said, like, you need to build trust explicitly with both the organization, with your C-levels, with your developers, because they're probably not going to trust you when you say, like, you don't have to do these heavy compliance parts anymore. Or they will trust you, or pretend they trust you just to not have to do the things, but that's a different story. And as we said, like, the integrating these compliance parts and making sure that we can have it as a support in the platform is something that can gain trust in a C-level, like a board or something, but you need to convince them that you will do it right and it cannot fail, because that's what they care about. And finally, it's easy to get distracted, so don't fall for chasing the moon or trying to find these like bleeding edge thing that will solve everything, because you still need to get like the tail end of everything with you, because you can't just do some certain things. I will share some examples. Can't really give the concrete version, but I can give you an approximation of the concrete version. And the idea is not to say, like, go home and do this thing. The idea is to show you we had a compliance situation, and this is what you can, this is how you could solve that potential compliance situation, and then you can figure out what would be my equivalent of doing that. So the first thing I want to say is take a look at this classic internal developer platform of a design system. How many in this room is familiar with a design system? Not that many. I'm not surprised, because it's like the front-end part of things, and I assume that the most people in this crowd is more towards the infrastructure part of things. So the idea with the design system is that UX designers can work and they can design and look and feel, set the theme and all the things, and then you can implement those into a component library that is a software library that other teams can reuse when they build a product. And the third part is like a style guide that tells you like how to use different components in different situations and when to apply the theme in what way. So it could, for instance, be like, here's a button for confirmation. This is what the button should look like when it's pressed. This is what it should look like when it's hovered. This is what it should look like in every different situation. And it's like a long list of variations of the same button. And you wonder, why would that be useful? I honestly don't know, because I'm not a front-end developer. But from what I hear, they really appreciate it when it's in place, and you can get a lot of use out of that. It's often used as a way of getting a coherent look and feel across a set of products, or one single product that a lot of different teams are working towards. So this is something that developers are familiar with, and they are usually appreciating it. There's nothing to fear, nothing to run from. The developers are still in the room. So enter the European Accessibility Act. Accessibility. That's a hard word. It's a directive from the European Union. The idea is to make sure that products and services are available for people with accessibility needs in order to both get more products on the market, have products at more competitive prices, have fewer barriers when accessing transport, education, and open labor market, and also more jobs available where accessibility expertise is needed. And this applies to a wide range of products and services, but some of them that might be interesting to us in this room is computers and operating systems, smartphones. So what did we not cover when we covered that? And also banking services, e-books, and e-commerce. So it's a quite wide range of products and services that need to adhere to the European Accessibility Act. In short, it's like, can you change the size of the font? Is it in like good color schemes? And on other whole set of things. But short version, you need to adapt your look and feel of your product. When we have a design system already, it's fairly easy, because then you can just make sure that all the components and all the things that you have in your design system adhere to the Accessibility Act. And your developers don't really have to go and adjust each and every one of their products. They can just continue using the design system, get a new version of the component library, and suddenly everything is in place and hopefully works. Probably need some quality assurance and all these things, but still. So it's a perfect example of how internal developer platforms can accelerate and ease the transition to being compliant with regulations. You don't even have to be very pragmatic to see that this could be a good use case. So let's take another look at another example. This is the audit DORA. If you're working in like financing and other things, you might be aware of it. It came into Act in January this year, and it's let's call it like a large chunk of things that you need to do. I can't really tell you anything more than it's a lot of fun, and a lot of people have spent a lot of time working on this across a wide range of companies. So the idea is, it covers a ton of things. I want to focus on ICT risk management because it's a very specific example I'm going to give. And ICT stands for, and I have to look every time, information and communication technology, meaning phones, laptops, servers, software, hardware, firmware, all the things. It's a wide range of things. And the thing we're going to focus on is Article 9 for Section E. And in order to ensure that all changes to ICT systems are recorded, tested, assessed, approved, implemented, and verified in a controlled manner. Yay. So we're going to focus on the recorded part. So we're not even going to do a full article. We're just going to pick one word in one section in one article. And this one applies to software, hardware, firmware, component systems, or security parameters. That's like everything. So as a platform team, we serve the software teams, and they have maybe servers. They do have software, they do like firewalls and stuff maybe, so maybe security parameters. At least there's a few things we can handle, but we definitely don't handle all of these things. So I'm going to zoom in on just the software part of this part, so like narrowing it down again. What it looks like in a, let's call it hypothetical situation, is that a software developer, they do the development, they push the code to Git, get the pipeline, got the cloud, everything. And whenever they want to release something to production, they have to create a change record in Jira, and then they can go ahead. Really, it might look like something like this, but I know we will run out of time if we try that, so let's go back to the simplified version. And that is not maybe fun. I don't know, how many times would you have to create like a manual Jira ticket for deploying to production before you get tired of it? In a purely hypothetical case, I would tire within 5 times because I have absolutely no patience whatsoever. So since we have all the information, why just not remove the man in the middle and the manual part of it? Instead, we can let our CI/CD pipeline pick out the information from Git, because we know what was changed, by whom, when, and like what parts. So it can just update and create this Jira ticket instead. And to be even more concrete, we can even like create a reusable workflow in our CI/CD pipeline that the developers can use, so they can create this record without having to care about setting up the automation themselves. So as an internal developer platform team, we can make sure that whenever they use our deploy to production workflow, they automatically get a created Jira ticket that is updated with the resolution of the deployment, did it go well or not, and everything is gathered and well. So with this built-in support for creating Jira tickets automatic, we're leaning into the existing solution, because every change for ICT is captured in Jira, but not all changes are going through our pipelines. So we're not throwing out the old, we're keeping the old, and we're leaning into it while removing the manual steps for the developers. Small downside, like this is only traceable for one deployment, and sometimes maybe you do changes across a wide range of deployments, and maybe then it would make sense to create a manual tracing ticket that combines all of them. But that's like a side note. We allow teams to move faster with less cognitive load. Happy. So we heard previously, I don't remember who, but someone talked about sane defaults earlier. I really appreciate that, because that's really important. And I think that when we are setting up for being compliant, as I said before, we need to be able to prove at times that we are actually compliant. And that means that we need to have the traces and the trails that we can pull forward to show that. So when I say audit reviews, I'm not meaning audit logs or audit events here. I'm talking about someone else coming in and looking at your company and asking, like, are you following your processes? So in this case, we want to make sure that we are not pushing things to production without having at least 2 developers having been involved in making the code, so that not a malicious actor can push, let's say, expose all the passwords to the logs or something else that is not good. So it could be that you trust your developers to do the right thing, or maybe you're one of those that are a little bit more like control and verify twice. We prefer to be somewhere in the middle. We trust you to do the right thing, but we want to verify it or be able to follow up on it. So in our case, we have the developer push to Git, CI/CD to cloud, easy, CBC. We also then want, in the Git, before we go to the cloud, we want the other developer to do a review of the code, merge it down. As maintainers of a GitHub organizations, or like administrators of that organization, we can set rules that we push across the whole organization and all the repositories in it, so that teams don't get to choose. So we can tell that you are not allowed to merge a branch to main unless it is reviewed by someone else. And then we can also set up our reusable workflows the team are already using, because they don't want to create the manual Jira tickets. We can set up those to only run on main, and thus we know that pushing to production only goes if someone already reviewed the code. But what happens when you wake up at 3 a.m., you're on call, shit's broken, and you need to push a change in order to fix it? Then you as a developer have the chance to say, like, okay, I know I should have a review on this, but I'm on call, so I can push the let's override the button, and then I can merge it to main and push it to the pipeline and get it out, and everyone is happy. Which is good. We want that to happen, because we don't think it is good to have too many people to be on call. So we want to be able to trace this, so we can follow up on it and say that, yes, this was a override, but we follow up on it and it was correct, and we know that it was a good thing to merge. So we have an audit log of that, and you get that for free in GitHub, which is really neat. So we are not blocked from handling production incidents, and we can follow up on it. So our audit review friendly defaults include audit events, which is so confusing. But there's no extra steps of setup for the teams, and there's a break class in case of emergency, and they have a possibility to review overrides, so we know that we can prove that we're compliant. The downside is that it's a lock-in solution. The teams don't get to choose this thing. We push it to everyone. And the asterisk is because there's nothing really hindering anyone from overriding all the time. And that would be like not that fun to review afterwards. But I guess someone else will have to take that conversation. We want it to be easy to do the right thing and hard to do. Easy to do the right thing, hard to do the wrong thing. Yes, easy to do the right thing and hard to do the wrong thing. So by setting up... I lost my thing. Okay, they're coming back. sorry about that. That was ad blocker upgrade. Thank you so much. Speaking of doing the right thing, don't force push notifications on your users. No, we want to have sane default configurations so we'd remove all these decisions from teams. There's this idea that there's only so many decisions a day you can make, and honestly, I don't want our developers to put those decisions on compliance things if they don't have to. So when we combine the complexity of compliance with some glue code, we can make it better. That's the golden star in the end. And we set our organization and our teams up for success. We can't fix everything right away, but what we can do is that we can throw down some boards, we can knock down a few walls, and the next trip around the infinity loop will be a little bit smoother for the developers. I mean, if you have endless of resources, you could probably fix everything right away, but I can't fix everything right away. And you got to start somewhere. We can't fix a safe way of handling a black hole. If anyone has an idea, please reach out to me afterwards and we can fix that. But the idea is that I think that an internal developer platform can be that uneven interface towards the compliance to make it easy for everyone else. It might not be fun for you as an internal developer platform team to figure out what is really required for compliance and what can I do to fix it. But everyone needs to figure it out, or you can figure it out and solve it for them. And I think in a situation where you figure out it for them and solve it for them, it's way better than everyone spending the time. And right, I was going to say you have to accept some compromises. In the end, we hope that this will help you move further, faster as a development organization. And that's all I have. Thank you so much.